Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Gift and you're welcome to Gift and Couture. So in today's tutorial, I want to show you how to cut and sew this beautiful pant you're seeing on your screen. All right. So the main purpose for this is just to cut the complete jacket and the inner corset. All right. So this is actually the part one. All right. So if this is your first time of coming across my channel, please do also subscribe and don't forget to like and share. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is to measure 1 inch, 1.5 inches away from. Okay, so that's basically going to be used as the band. So the next measurement is going to be your hip measurement, and the next measurement is going to be your crotch measurement. So how to measure your crotch is you divide your hip into three. Actually divided my hip is 37 divided by 3, I got 12.5, and then I marked it just like what you're seeing on the screen. So after that I went ahead to connect the dots lines. All right, so after you're done doing that, go ahead and label it just like what you're seeing on the screen. I labeled the waist, the hip, the crotch measurement. So the next thing is going to measure my knee. So go ahead and still minus the 1.5 for the band and make 20. Mark your knee length. Okay, mine is 24 minus 2 making 22. So that's what I use. I went ahead to measure my trouser length, which is going to stop at my ankle, and that's where I want it, which is 39, and then I marked the lines. All right, so after I was doing that, I went ahead to connect the lines just like what you are seeing on the screen. So I went ahead to divide my hip into 4, which is 37 divided by 4, and I got 9.7. And the same measurement, I took it to my waist. All right, just like what you're seeing on the screen. Follow this method. All right, and marked it as well. So after I was done doing that, I went down to my crotch line and I divided my thigh, which is 24 into 2. That will give you 12. So but you're not going to use that 12, you're going to minus 1 from it, because the 1 will be added to your back trouser. All right, so I went ahead to maintain that same 11 inches on my knee and to the ankle measurement, and then marked it and connect the lines just like what you're seeing on the screen. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to mark my waist measurement, which is from the center. My waist is actually 28 from there, and I added 1.5 to it, which is going to serve as a sewing allowance. All right, at this as a seam. All right, and then I connected the lines. So if you like, I don't know, I don't really like my trouser to have that, all right, in front. So if you want to use that, the half inch or one that is going to remain, that's what you are going to use. So I went ahead to connect the together. So the same measurement I have, I took it down to my crotch length and I measured. That is my hip measurement, and then I marked it just like what you are seeing, and I connected the lines. So after I was done doing that, on that crotch, the distance from the crotch line, the thigh line to your the same measure, the hip measurement, whatever you have on your own, just divide it by 2, and mine I got 1.5, so I divided by 2 to get 0.7, and I connected the lines. I contour it just like what you're seeing. Remember, the my thigh measurement is 11 inches, so I'm going to divide that 11 inches. That means I'm dividing my trouser into two, and I'll share it on both sides just like what you are seeing on the screen. So that means I'm using 5.5. All right, so after I was done, I connected the lines. So after I was done, I went to my knee length. Remember, I measured, my knee circumference is actually 16. All right, so I divided it by 4 and I marked, which is 4 inches, and I shared it on both sides just like what you are seeing, and I connected it. After I was done doing that, I went ahead to fold the 2 inches, which is that I'm going to use for the hemming, as the hemming, and then folded it just like what you're doing. It like this will save you from having issues. Like when you want to fold your trouser, you won't be struggling to fold it. All right, and it won't be squeezing. So I went ahead to measure my ankle measurement, which is 13. I divided it by 4 and I marked it on both sides. All right. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to connect the lines just like what you are seeing on the screen. Please, if this is your first time of coming across my channel, do well to subscribe so you can always get notified whenever I post a new video. So I went ahead to connect the lines. All right. So after I was done doing that, I went to the center front and I came down by half inch and I connected it. All right, that's what you do for the front. And then I went ahead to cut it out just like what you're seeing. Remember, there is no seam allowance for the front. All right, I did not add it. So in case you want to have in case you want the front to have flap, all right, so go ahead and measure 6 inches downward from the waist and then mark 2 inches just like what you're seeing on the screen and connect it. Okay, just like what you're seeing, that's what you're going to use for your flap. All right, but for me, I don't want the zip, all right, to be, I want it to be by the side. And after I was done doing that, I went ahead to cut it out. Okay, in case you don't know how to use the what's it called, to sew the flap, I already have a video there. All right, so after I was done cutting, I went ahead to place it to cut the back. Remember, I want the back to have that, so I already added 1 inch to the dart. Okay, and to the front, to the back, you're not going to leave it like that. You're going to raise it by 1 inch and connect it just like what you're seeing on the screen. All right, after you are done doing that, remember I removed 1 inch from the front thigh, so I'm going to add it to the back. Normally I'm supposed to use 2 inches, all right, because I don't want it to be folding. I don't want the trouser to be folding in front, so I'm going to add that 1 inch to my thigh measurement rather, and then marked it. So on the knee length, I'm going to add 2 inches, and on the ankle length, I'm going to add 2 inches all the way. So going up to my hips measurement, I'm going to add the same 2 inches and connect it to meet the waist. Remember, I've already added 1.5 to the hip measurement, to the waist rather. All right, so just go ahead and connect it. Please, you can see the way I'm connecting it there is not really straight, so where the French curve is needed, actually use that. So I went up and connected the lines just like what you are seeing on the screen to meet the hips measurement. So remember, like I said, I already added 1 inch, so there's no need, unless you want your own to have elastic, you can add 1.5 to the waist for ease. All right, then go ahead and connect it just like what you're seeing on the screen. All right, after I was done, I went ahead to cut it out, and then it's time for me to fix the pocket. So I actually use 1.5 to get the pocket shape. All right, so after I'm done, I'm going to fold it in. I'm not going to cut it out, but you just have to stay tuned so that you see how I'm going to do it, because I actually did the full video on that. So after folding it in like that, I'm going to go ahead and notch it, because I have to notch where I'm going to sew. Like if I'm using one inch, I have to notch 1 inch. Since I'm using 0.6, all right, so I notched 0.6 on the paper, and that's the same thing I did on the fabric as well, so that it will be able to lay properly. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to the front, I mean to the back measurement. Remember, I added 1 inch. All right, so I went ahead to minus half inch. Remember, I added 1 inch for the dart. I went ahead to minus half inch, just like what you're seeing, and then from away from that half inch, I marked 3 inches. So away from that 3 inches, so I marked 1 inch. That is where I'm going to initiate the dart. All right, so from there, I went ahead to mark 6 inches as the length. You can either use 6 or 5 inches to sew your dart. All right, so after I was done, I went ahead to connect it just like what you're seeing, and I notched the fabric. So after that, I went ahead to cut the pocket. Actually use 6.5 as the width, and the length I use 12 inches. So after I was done cutting this one, I went ahead to cut the second pocket because I'm using two pockets in front. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to iron the front. So what I iron is actually where the pocket is going to be, just like what you're seeing on the screen. I folded it inside and then went ahead to iron it. Remember, that's what I'm using. So I did the same thing on the other side, and after that I went ahead to fix the pocket. You can see the way I iron it. Please, when you're doing that your own, just have to be careful. So I'm not going to go ahead to cut it out. I went ahead to join the center, just like what you're seeing on the screen first. So after joining the center, I went ahead to put the pocket, just like what you're seeing, and then so I iron um the center of the pocket so that I'll be able to do the needful. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to place it, and then this is the outcome. All right, I place it to sew what I iron. So you can use your pins, all right, to hold it so that you know exactly where to sew. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to sew it. So after I was done sewing, I went ahead to trim off the inside, the inner pocket. So I went ahead to cut it out just like what you are seeing on the screen, and I trim off one side. Remember, I didn't cut it out. So what I'm cutting out is actually the pocket and not the fabric itself. All right, because I want it to be hard, because the fabric is already out. There's no need of putting paper stay. So I went ahead to flip it to the other side instead of stitching them together. I mean the trouser and the pocket. So I prefer stitching only the pocket itself. So that's what I'm going to do. So I went ahead to do that. After I finished doing that, I went ahead to iron it just like what you are seeing on the screen. So after I was done ironing, I went ahead to flip the pocket to this side, just like what you're seeing on the screen, and then use my pins to pin it. I make sure I lay it properly, and I make sure it's aligned. Remember, I removed 1.5 for the pocket, so I had to place it in order for it to align. So I went ahead to use pins to hold it just like what you're seeing on the screen, and then stitch it so I can get a neat finishing. All right, so after I was done doing that, I went ahead to sew it like 1 inch downward from the sewing, and then after I was done, this is the outcome. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to notch it, like notch like 1 inch, notch the pocket like 1 inch, and then flip the pocket outside just like what you are seeing on the screen. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to sew it. After I was done sewing, I went ahead to flip it to the other end and cut it out and stitch it rather. So if you didn't really get the first part, I'm going to go ahead and do the second part. All right, so how to fix the pocket? First of all, place it just like seeing on the screen and flip it to the other side, and then sew it carefully. Actually, you are going to sew where you've already ironed, then just like what you're seeing. After you are done sewing, go ahead and cut it out, cut the pocket side out, and then sew it. Follow the same method just like what I did. Make sure you align it properly, make sure you iron it neatly, and then fold it just like what you're seeing on the screen. So when you are done doing that, use your iron to press it. All right, so when you are done doing that, iron it neatly. As you are sewing, just be ironing it. You don't have to wait till you finish before you iron. So when you are done, flip the pocket to the outer part and measure the exact 1.5 that you removed from the pocket, just like what you are seeing. Go ahead and measure it, cross check your measurement, because if you don't do, it's going to increase. It either reduces your measurement or it increases your measurement. All right, so after I was done, I went ahead to pin it so that I can be able to have a neat finishing. So after I was done sewing it, stitching it down, I went down by 1 inch to cut the pocket just like what you're seeing, and I put my hand inside the pocket and flip it out just like what you're seeing, and then sew it. So after I was done sewing it, I went ahead to top stitch it just like what you are seeing on the screen. I cut it out. I went ahead to sew it, and then our pockets are ready. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. All right, if you like this video, make sure you share. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to iron it, and this is the inner pocket. Okay, you make sure you have your own is like this, and this is the outer one. All right, so after I was done doing that, I went ahead to place the back on the front. Remember I said I want the zip to be by the side, so I went ahead to also sew the center back just like what you're seeing on the screen. So after I was done doing that, I also sew the that as well and iron it neatly. So make sure you iron your clothes as you are sewing. All right, so after I was done, I went ahead to place the front on the back just like what you're seeing on the screen, and then sew it from down, not from up, not from up. All right, sew it from down all the way down. Make sure you use 0.6 because the measurement you had really matters. After I was done, I went ahead to um iron it properly. So after I was done doing sewing the side, I went ahead to sew the inner part, right? Okay, so after I was done doing that, I went ahead to iron it as well. I give it a press. I didn't have to wait till I finish sewing. As I'm sewing, that's what I sew, that's how I sew. All right, I went ahead to press it, give it a press just like what you're seeing on the screen. Even after I finished doing that, I went ahead to weave it. After I finished weaving, you remember when I was weaving, I did not join it together to weave. I weave it separately. All right, I went ahead to use my hemming gum to fold the 2 inches that I had it to the left. So after I was done doing that, it really took some time. So I make sure it's aligned properly, and I iron it just like what you're seeing on the screen. So after that, I went ahead to iron it after I was done using the hemming gum, and this is the outcome. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to cut the band. So the band that I use actually cut 4 inches, and I gum paper stay on it. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to fold half inch, just like what you're seeing on the screen, just like what you'll be seeing. Half inch, the first measurement I did, the second one is actually the 1.5 I removed. All right, just like what you're seeing on the screen, follow this method, and then I measure it and fold it just like what you're seeing on the screen. So the next measurement, the next half, is just for me to sew it for the sewing where it's going to close neatly. Anyway, just stay tuned. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to fix the band on the trouser. Remember, it's from outside to inside. All right, do not sew from inside. So this is what I did, and after that, this is the outcome. You can see I've not sewn it down. So the reason is I want to fix the zip. All right, and I want everything to be inside, so I flip it to the wrong side, and they're fixing my zip. So the first thing I did, I just placed my zip on where the sewing is going to be. All right, and where the getter stop. All right, just like what you are seeing on the screen. So the excess zip, I'm going to cut it out. I'm not leaving it inside. So after I was done just like that, I sewed it. It was not really closed, and I wanted it to be too much closer than this. I had to open the zip just like what you're seeing on the screen, and expand the sewing. All right, just like what you're seeing. And after I was done doing that, I folded it. So this is what I got after I finished the first sewing, the second sewing rather. So this is what I got. I know it was kind of hard there because the band is kind of thick. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to cut this, reduce the zip just like what you're seeing on the screen, and I left half. So remember, I didn't cut it where the exact ghetto stops. All right, I left like half inch, and then I folded it just like what you're seeing on the screen, and then bring the band to it to cover it. So if this is your first time, it's going to give you a little tough time, but you have to be patient because you like the outcome. After I was done fixing it just like what you, I went ahead to cut out the excess just like what you're seeing on the screen, and then sew it. And when I was sewing, please, when you are sewing this kind of band, do not sew it from inside. You have to flip it to the other side, whether you're sewing skirt or you are sewing trouser with it. So you're going to sew from outside. All right, when while you are sewing, put your hand under, and this is the outcome. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to iron it neatly, and here I am wearing it. So please don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to my next video. Thank you.